Okay, you don't know this, but this is take 2 because the first one was a little. I'm a little off today. I've been dropping things left and right, and the dog's woke me up early, so I'm a little stuttering, as you can already tell. So I was thinking of doing End of the Line, doing first chapter of End of the Line, but then I thought about it, and I want to show you the other covers that End of the Line has had over the years. And unfortunately, the first one is in New Jersey, and I am currently in Virginia. So I will be visiting my family in New Jersey the end of next week after school ends, and I'll be staying there for a couple weeks to help my mom and when I finish up some wedding details, which will be in July. So if I'm a little frazzled the end of June, the early July, that is why I am at the tail end of planning a wedding. And I'm sorry in advance. I had the dogs out, but Savannah has decided she was going to open the door by herself and let them in. So I figured I would start chapter 2, Project S. These chapters are a little longer than some of my other books. End of Line and Project S both have longer chapters. The only difference is this book is the longest I have ever written. Lily, can you at least sit down so people don't have to see your bottom? Thank you. Sorry. So I figure I'll do chapter 2 of Project S again. I would gush. If you have not listened to chapter 1, I would, because that makes sense to listen to chapter 1 and then chapter 2. I will also try to keep this up short, so in order to do that, I will not be reading the whole chapter. Sorry. Trust me, I would read and read, just because I love Nick and Rachel. They will hold a little soft spot in my heart, and they probably always will. Because why not? They're awesome. This is wild chapter. Okay. So I will get started. Again, I will not be reading the whole chapter. And I will notice this cover. Those who have read it, who are listening, I keep talking about how Rachel has green eyes. This person has blue eyes. This is, as a reader, that would drive me absolutely up the wall and drive me crazy, and I'd never stop talking about it and probably drive my friends crazy about how much of this would drive me crazy. But as an author, who are friends with me on Facebook or read my blogs or listen to me on Twitter, you know I am not the most tech savvy person. I get enough to manage. I have enough to play around and try to figure it out. Give me a little direction, I will almost figure it out. When it comes to graphics and all that, it just doesn't happen. Hold on, I'm gonna pause this real. Okay, if you don't notice, I moved. I had to because I wasn't quite sure what Savannah was getting into, and she's a little mischievous. That would drive me crazy, the green eyes and the blue eyes. But again, I couldn't figure it out. So, chapter 2, Nick. I crossed the entryway, my hand behind my back, to close the door behind us. Rachel turned around, probably thinking she'd close it herself. She came chest to chest, face to the nape of my neck. I grinned. Rachel's cheeks had pink spreading across them. Her gaze was glued to the floor as the door clicked behind us. I watched Rachel's upper body rise and boiling up like a balloon before letting out a long breath. Rachel has always been funny to embarrass. I held back the laughter. I didn't want to make her completely uncomfortable. The hall was surprisingly quiet, especially considering the hotel was filled with high schoolers. Rachel was a step or two ahead of me, despite her shorter legs. I glanced over at her. Rachel's hair was just short of her waist, blonde with smooth waves that flowed down from the top of her head to the tips of her strands. Her coat was buttoned and tied close to her upper body and overlapping those dark green blue jeans of hers since it was so big. Rachel's white little sneakers were just peeking out of the bottoms of her pants. No, I wasn't studying her. I reached around Rachel when she got to the end of the hall and opened the door before her. She tilted her head to some extent so that her big green eyes would meet mine. The corners of her lips turned ever so slightly. Thanks. No problem, Rachel, I responded. Rachel started to hop down the stairs. When I say hop, I mean quite literally bouncing down the stairs like a small child's. It was probably not the wise to lose a short woman on a mission. My sister and mother approved that one. I was the youngest of 4, 2 older brothers, and an older sister. Plus, I always had classes long enough with Rachel to know that teachers were going to fix our room situation. She was so sweet and innocent, no one would dare try to corrupt her, minus my sense of humor. When we reached the bottom of the platform, we made our way out of the lobby to see our grade traveling as a herd to another room. A big room filled with tables and chairs for dining. Most likely, it was used for conferences that came to the hotel. I glanced down at Rachel, who shrugged her shoulders as we followed. We were ushered to a random table. I sat in the chair, closed my eyes for a moment, and stretched, wishing that I could just go to sleep already to make up for waking up so freaking early this morning for the stupidity the school had arranged. My siblings my siblings took this trip in 8th grade. My brothers felt the need to brag about the fact that they didn't have a project like this. My sister smacked them with a spoon when she was cooking to get them to shut up. That started a food cooking. That started a food fight in the March household. We were lucky my mom came home before my dad. Otherwise, we would have been doomed. My mom got the last word in by shoving spaghetti sauce in all our heads, then making us clean up before Dad saw. I love my family. It kind of looks like everyone is paired up when they're coming in here, Rachel announced in a low voice, disbelief in every word. Oh, God. Girls were absolutely crazy. Rachel, I think you've been reading too many of your weird books, I started thinking about the book. I think it was called Flowers in the Attic. Came up with some students because some students saw the movie and Rachel straightened out the facts, which left me to never look at her the same way again. We went to public school. We were not people in a dating service. I shook my head as she raised an eyebrow at me. Don't patronize me, Nicholas. Look around the room. Rachel muttered. She just had to use my whole name. I rolled my eyes as I scanned the room, observing more of my peers entering. Okay, maybe you aren't completely crazy, I responded under my breath. She stuck her tongue in at me. I returned the reaction and she giggled. I smiled. This was normal for us. I really wish Rachel wasn't right as much as she was. Yo, dude, what the hell is going on? A slap on my back punctuated my friend's question. I peeked over my shoulder and grinned. Dill, if I knew, think about telling you for a good price, I told him. Dill, Mark, John, and I were all part of a close-knit group, each person coming in a different year. Dill and I were probably the longest in the group, then John later in elementary school, when he moved into our town. Mark moved into our town in middle school with his uncle. We were all a little different, yet still had fun busting each other's chops. What else are friends for? Dill had his dark hair and his usual short cut. I did not know how he could handle only half an inch of hair. I liked being able to have hair to run my hands through. I would never tell my friends that, the girl jokes that I would get. Dill had dark eyes and was a little shorter than me. Dill sat in a chair across from me, slouching back in the chair. Next to him glared Rachel's dark clothing wearing friend, Bridget, big hair and all. Hey, Rachel, maybe you had a point in being pessimistic on this whole drive here after all. Bridget kept her eyes on Dill, who appeared to just be as thrilled as her. Schools, you can't trust them, Rachel responded, but she was turned around, not facing the three of us, still surveying the room. Her voice was distant. Rach, you okay? I asked, placing a hand on her shoulder. She withdrew her body from me in a snap of reaction. Don't touch me, Rachel said. Even through her jacket, I could see her shoulders tense. I tried to remember her friends hugging her in the halls like some other girls did. I couldn't think of a time I had seen that. Actually, thinking back to 8th grade graduation, she was laughing at all those who were crying. She kept shouting something like, "You'll see them in 3 months," over and over. She'll calm down eventually. Principal Daughtry stepped up to the front of the room. Students, quiet down. Quiet down! His stern voice was cutting through the voices of the whole sophomore class. A middle-aged man with brown hair that was speckled with gray and white, that I could see even this far, was up front. What are you doing? Oh. Can you come up? Yeah, come on. Okay, or not. What? I asked you if you wanted to come up and you said no. Come here. No. No. Okay. That's fine. A microphone was in one hand, while his other hand was free to be able to be expressive. I scooted my chair a little so that I could see the principal. Leaning back, I watched around Rachel's blonde head. Principal Daughtry was a tall, lean man who always wore a pressed suit that seemed to hang just a smidge on his frame. Back when my siblings were in high school, he was a decent guy, but apparently a few years ago, his wife and him started having issues in their marriage. Rumors started around the school that his wife left him, that they split up, that there was a full-on battle of a divorce. That one of them got caught cheating. You think any form of gossip that could have been thought up, it was mentioned. Ever since that Principal Daughtry had been in a hard A. Ruling Adams High with an iron fist that was apparently desperately needed for a very low-key suburban town. Before you continue to harass the teachers to fix your room arrangements, there's no mistake. That is your roommate. Principal Daughtry paced, his eyes scanning the room that was now hushed except for a few whispers. One of his hands was somewhat open, rolling in the air as he spoke. The project will be taking place over the next few months, possibly longer, depending on how things go. Spending more time with your partners will help the project develop for more of a full-on experience. This is one of the reasons we said no electronics on the trip. We want you all to be focused on the task at hand. He stopped in the corner of the platform. Principal Daughtry's body was directly facing the student body. All of us waited for him to continue so we could finally hear the details of the alleged project. My eyes drifted down from Principal Daughtry to Rachel. The girl was stressing for the moment permission slips were passed out during homeroom. Rachel's emotions weren't fully furious or crazed, but more curiosity and dread who she would be paired with. GPA was heavy weight on her, and she was the type to stress over that since kindergarten. When our friend was a little sidetracked as I tried to calm her down, I joked with Rachel that the worst case scenario that she would mess with her partner. Rachel didn't like that. We want our students at Adams High to be able to enter the real world prepared for life and what will come their way. We have a reputation to keep up. Now, I'm sure you students have over the years seen on television or even from grades above you, the marriage project. You and your project will learn to cooperate with each other in addition to learning the basic skills it takes for a couple to function in a marriage. Oh, for the love of God, Rachel mumbled under her breath. With her elbow resting on the table, she leaned her head against her hand. I might never have been Rachel's number one friend, but I do try to look out for her. I'd admit that I had been known to pick on her over the years, but I was never that bad. I'm not that mean. Not that I'm mean like I tell her to stand up for herself against others. My picking is more like joking between the two of us than harshness. For example, if you guys haven't made a nickname for her that she hates, and I call her that sometimes, at the same time I tell them I'm the teacher heard someone saying it to her and tell her stop. When I do, I push her to buttons, and it always seems different. I can't explain it, but it just is. It was also written on her face. When I do call her that once in a blue moon, when I do call her worm, she doesn't have that look of, I hate you, go die. I leaned close to her. You could have been paired up with someone worse, Rachel, I whispered to her, red spreading across the side of her face. On that note, we're going to stop right there on the bark. Leo! See, Leo. Alright, so on that note, this will be my last chapter I'm reading from Project Us. If you want to read more samples, you can go on Wattpad. Wattpad, WATTPAD, and read more of the chapters on there. But if you're really interested, you can go anywhere there's ebooks or paperbacks available, and you can get your own copy of Project Us I would highly suggest it. It has underrated. I probably shouldn't say that considering it's my own book, but I think it's highly underrated. Is great character development, jokes. It's funny. It's sweet. It'll get you, I hope. And just keep in mind, any questions about it, or you can contact me at any point. Email questions or Goodreads. Anywhere. Thank you for listening. I will be posting more chapter samples, and I'm sorry in advance for all the craziness, especially for my 3 dogs. Have a good night. Thank you.